accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to
Here we go. It is episode 3 of the Red, White, and Crew podcast. It's an exciting day. It is match day. Match day 1, as the U.S. men's national team is hosting on home soil for the first time in 32 years, their first home World Cup match since 1994 as they welcome Paraguay. We're going to jump right into that shortly. But before we forget, want to give a shout out to our title sponsor, our title sponsor in Goal Getter. This episode is brought to you by Goal Getter, a recruiting education platform built to help female soccer student athletes and their families navigate the path to college soccer. The process can feel overwhelming, especially when families don't fully understand the recruiting landscape. Goal Getter provides the education, tools, guidance, and guidance that families need to navigate the recruiting landscape and make informed decisions. For more information, you can find them and visit them at GoalGetter. That's GOLGETR.com. Again, that's GoalGetter.com. And you can also follow them on Instagram and Twitter, Twitter X as we call it, at GoalGetter Soccer. That's GOLGETR Soccer to learn more. All right, gentlemen, what's going on?
What's up?
Ready to go.
I've got the tism into my patriotism right now. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Tism in your patriotism. Awesome.
Yep.
So, all right. So, hey, we're about, what are we? T minus 3.5 hours away from kickoff. Thoughts on from the main match of the day, right? So I know we have like, what is it, about a 3-hour pregame show that they had talked about on both Telemundo and Fox. But before that, we're the pre-show to the pre-show. So thank you for being here with us. Again, this is the Red, White, and Crew podcast as we are covering all things U.S. men's national team, as well as an inside look at the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup across the board. Yesterday was Mexico. Earlier today was Canada, and then the U.S. later this evening in a couple of hours. But Canada just wrapped up in a tough match that they should have probably scored about 8 goals and finished it 1-1 versus Bosnia-Herzegovina. Thoughts on that one, gentlemen?
Defensive organization, again. We talked about that before, why I thought that they were a sleeper with how well they just defend. And just seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Every time they needed to be, they were there.
Yeah. So crazy.
Yeah, it just seemed like very, very gritty performance from Bosnia. And just, I forgot about Klasinic. I was like, when they announced him, I was like, I know that name. I thought he retired like 10 years ago. So, but no, I thought they were very well organized. I thought Canada, once they made the changes, kind of seemed to come alive a little bit. It did kind of look like it was going to be one of those games where I think leading up to the fourth quarter, we can call it, but leading up to that water break in the second half, it looked like when they hit that water break, I was like, oh, they didn't capitalize on all that momentum. And I actually thought that maybe they were going to get hit on the counter again and maybe go out of there 2-0, even though they were the better team. But it was a great game. It was a great game for neutrals, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't even see the Canada goal. I was in the middle of prepping for for our show, for the podcast, and I stepped away for a minute. Next thing I know, I come back and it's 1-1. So I'm guessing it had to be somewhere in there. Did anybody catch how long after the water break it was? Like how soon it was?
It was right around the 80th minute in that time.
Okay.
Or 78. It was 78, 80 minutes somewhere in there.
So about 3 to 5 minutes post water break, we'll say. Just entering the fourth quarter.
It was a little later than that.
78th minute. Yeah, so it should have been. Yeah. What did they hit that about? 60.
Yeah.
60
yeah.
Is when they do that water break.
Oh yeah, they did go. Yeah, I'm thinking 7. Yeah, never mind. I'm thinking 75. Never mind. Yeah. My math is off here. So good deal. So Brian, thoughts Canada match? I know you were pulling for your guy.
I absolutely love Jesse Marsch. He's my second favorite American, right behind every other American tied for first. But no, I thought the game was just it was end to end. There was a lot of a lot of free flowing play. I think Canada played really well in the second half, moving the ball, starting to find the gaps, and eventually it doesn't matter how well you defend. Eventually, if you don't get enough up top and you don't get enough enough pressure up top, then a team's going to find that opening, and they found that opening with Kyle Aaron right there at the top of the box. It's a great turn, great finish. Um, so, I think it's a well earned 1 point for each team. I think both teams can sit there and say, yeah, we probably should have had all three, but they'll be. I think both teams can walk off the field being happy with getting one.
Yeah, yeah. Rafa, anything different? What do you think?
Like I said, at Bosnia, like I said, defensively they did a great job. Like I said, this could have been a 3-1, 4-1 route, but the defense kind of kept them in the game. And I know they had one goal kind of disallowed because of a corner of offsides. That could have been a game changer there too. It would have been down, I think, 2-0. But got to give it to Canada coming back. I think they opened up the space a little bit more in that second half. They were getting through and got the point. And like I said, next up, we'll see. Well, like I said, the way it's scheduled for them, like I said, they should take care of business next week. Next week with Qatar, and then the big one with Switzerland. That could determine who wins the groups. And same thing with Bosnia. Like I said, they got a tough one coming up. They got to get a result there. I think they definitely need to get a win.
Yeah. Pretty interesting how that sets them up. But that we've now had two consecutive exciting matches back to back. Can we make it maybe three in a row with a match tonight? I thought Mexico, the first one, the kickoff, the Mexico South Africa one was a weird one, right? Just given how the circumstances with how South Africa played, but it is what it is. Trying to see if we can get three straight exciting matches. I mean, hey, I'd be all for just USA just running away from U.S. men's national team running away from them right from the start. But we'll see. That's a tough Paraguay squad, and that we're going to dissect shortly here. But that's all the real reason why we're here, Elias, right, is we're going to talk about Bernardo Silva signing with Real Madrid, right? Is that why? That's not why we're here? Or is that another podcast?
That's a different podcast.
Oh, sorry. Got my podcast mixed up. Hey, but I did see your guy Lewandowski's headed to Chicago, to the Chicago Fire. Did you see that potentially?
I did not see that. That would be a good get for the MLS.
I think that just came down within the last maybe hour or two. But I got off the phone with Fabrizio Romano in Italy, and he's telling me that he's on his way to Chicago. So anybody else catch a little bit more on that, Rafa? Maybe I know Rafa's always on top of that stuff.
Yeah, I think they're close to a deal, but looks like that might be his destination. Kind of makes sense because, like I said, there's a big Polish, community there in the Chicago area.
Yeah,
so,
right.
like I said, I forgot there was another Polish star that they had back then that played there
Peter Novak,
for Chicago a few years ago. Yeah, Peter Novak. Yeah.
Peter
So,
Novak,
like
and,
I said, it
they've
just
come
makes
well.
sense.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense for him to go there. So we'll see. Like I said, maybe he'll help out Chicago. Like I said, for the rest of the MLS season.
Now, how old is he now at this point? What is he, 35? 36?
He's older than that.
Is he?
I think he's 37.
I thought he was 37 or 38.
I thought he was still. I thought he was like maybe 2 years younger than Messi. Maybe, I don't know. I guess should be right around that same. I guess that same.
37.
Yeah.
But
Gotcha.
they were saying it's going to be a 2-year contract and then his option for the third.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right, so we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna dive in. So let's do this. Going to go ahead and do our preview here. So of our the U.S. men's national team in Paraguay here. So kind of a couple of things that we kind of wanted to highlight here. Obviously, this will be the first match of Group D. The other one we'll see tomorrow between Australia and Turkey. How does the U.S. come out? So we've seen two of the three host nations, how they responded in terms of a home being hosts, right? How does the U.S. come out, right? In what should be a very, very, very heavy home field advantage there at SoFi or LA Stadium, Los Angeles Stadium, whatever we want to call it. Thoughts on the surface for this before we start to dive in a little bit more? Brian, we'll start with you.
I mean, I think you put it there. It's literally probably one of the most important games in American soccer history. Getting off. The hype has been there now for a while that the World Cup's coming. This is our opportunity. This is our, I'm not going to say the GG, but this is one of our best. This is one of our most talented, individually talented teams, and we've seen them go up and down over the last 6 to 8 months. And can they come out and give us a performance that we know they're capable of? Can they give us a performance that kind of turns the pundits again, towards soccer again? Can this be like a second rebirth of American soccer like we saw in '94? In '94, we didn't play very well, but we got some results, and it started the soccer boom. Can this be the start of the second soccer boom in America because these guys really kind of just inspire a nation with their run?
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else? Elias, you got anything maybe to add to that?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with. I think that they're going to have a lot of. It's going to be, can they stay locked in for 90 minutes? I think it's going to be kind of a similar game to the game that we just saw, where one team is going to be really, really focused on defending their box, counterattacking, looking for set pieces, and then the other team is going to be kind of the protagonist. But just because you have the ball doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go and dominate. So you've seen some lapses from them in the past where they have individual errors. You think about the Senegal game; they were in complete control, switched off for a moment or two, gave up something stupid there, and they just I want to see them locked in for 90 minutes, and not even necessarily that they run Paraguay off the pitch, but do they play solid, well composed soccer? Because I think that's what's going to take for them to make a run.
Yeah, I was watching was an interview maybe about a day or two ago with Marcelo Balboa, right, the longtime U.S. men's national team legend, defender and legend, and he was talking about how for Paraguay, this is their first World Cup in 16 years. If you remember, he was referencing the video right from their home stadium, their send off. If you saw that, that was amazing, right? The send off there. So, and then the fact that they draw the host nation, and it's the U.S. at that. In their first match, he was just hyping up of how the fact that this is very much their World Cup final, right? That they want to come in and kind of shock the world right from the start. And I mean, and this is a very well organized, very well coached squad. So yeah, I think some people who just because it's not a Brazil or Germany, the casuals, right, or because it's not a France or a Spain, they'll immediately kind of say, and it's not Argentina. Or Brazil out of the South America, they're quick to brush it off. But yeah, we have our work cut out for us tonight in this one. So, all right, we move on. So we look forward. So okay, so the stakes here. We go ahead. So what's at stake, right? So the current outlook in terms of the form, the U.S. after very questionable performances back in the early spring, probably put their best two performances together of the last 2 years. In a win over Senegal and a loss in which they largely dominated action versus Germany, at least for the first probably for 50, I would say, of the 90 minutes, maybe 60 of the 90 minutes. But why this matters, we've just talked about the importance of the U.S. has to come out with a win. That's not taking anything away from Paraguay. But thoughts on anything on here when we talk about what's at stake from the U.S. Perspective. We'll go, Aaron, Wes, we'll go with you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think it's a must win. We got to get 3 points because we've talked about the necessity of not going into that Turkey game at the end, needing to get points. That's not going to put us in a good position to advance. So I think it is all on the United States to, again, be one of those host nations that shows up, performs well in the opening game, gets the win, gets all 3 points. And Paraguay is absolutely the team that could destroy all of that for us, and that's what they're going to go into doing. I think we're a little lucky with one of their strikers being out. I mean, they're saying he may be available, but I'm not sure yet with what we can see. Nobody's really said anything too much that what I'm seeing, but I'm excited about this game. I told you it. Seeing all of the people outside of our normal soccer culture. You know what I mean? Like, we all know the soccer culture. We know the people that are talking about soccer. We follow them. But to wake up this morning and go through social media and see all the other people that are now talking about this game and talking about the World Cup, I think that has me more excited, just to introduce more people to the game of soccer and grow this thing. And if the U.S. comes out and doesn't perform well, that's not going to help our case in getting people on the bandwagon. So there's a lot at stake tonight. Not even just what is inside of a World Cup game and winning our group. There's so much outside of it for growing this game in America even more.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things here, what's important, why it's writing in terms of the importance of this first one is building momentum, getting more people on board to understand, to see that wave, right? Because for a host nation, that's how they kind of catch fire, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing too is how it can ease pressure off of going into match day 2 versus Australia, and then of course match day 3 versus Turkey A. So Elias?
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, it's really exciting to just see just the vibes around the whole tournament right now. Like, I mean, I have probably 4 of my coaches, at our school there texting me like, Ramos, what do I need to know about the game tonight? Where do I need to go watch it? What's going on? And so, I think that's really exciting to get other people involved. Even our head football coach, is texting me like, what do we need to, where do I need to take my family, things like that. So, but with that, I think that the team also kind of understands that as well. And so I think a win is really, really important today. I don't think a point is good enough, because I think it just is going to drive that pressure onto everybody. And this team kind of knows. I think you talk to you kind of listen to the interviews and what they've been talking about. They know that they're supposed to win this game, and if they don't, that's just going to create a lot of doubt. And then you don't necessarily want to go into those games against Australia or Turkey, like Wes said, where you need points, because that's not necessarily going to put you in a great spot to where you're up against good opponents, you're feeling the pressure, and then also just everything that goes along with being in a World Cup. So I think this game is huge to get it started on the right foot.
Absolutely. Rafa, from your perspective, you were the only one in our crew that I think only had the U.S. with 4 points through the group stage, right? So obviously it was a particular performance that you have your prediction, which we'll talk about later. But your thoughts, the perspective, I know both you and I are very familiar with this Paraguay squad and how dangerous they can be. What are your thoughts on Paraguay and their mentality going into this one?
Well, for them being in CONMEBOL for qualification, it's probably one of the toughest ones. I mean, to come out of that, and then it says something. The quality of the teams. Like I said, you have Argentina, Brazil, you got Ecuador, Chile, and all them. It's a dogfight. Uruguay, like I said, it's a dogfight, and just to come out of there, so they know they're well prepared. They're, like I said, they've been battle tested, and they understand going into this game, what it means to going against the hosts. Like I said, they are familiar with each other because they did play back in the fall. This is a key game, really, for the U.S. I think this is kind of like 10 years in the making. And I remember on my drive over here to Del Rio, I was listening to I think what's it called, Counterattack, and the one thing they were mentioning about things is the nerves going in. Like I said, the U.S. national team has to deliver, but the pressure's on them, and not so much on Paraguay. Like I said, these guys are going to come in with nothing to lose,
Right.
and I think they're going to be a little bit more looser, and if things don't go right, I mean, maybe, it stays 0-0 going into the second half, and make things real interesting, put that down. I know the funny thing is kind of where they mentioned something, if the U.S. doesn't get a result today, then they'll still be all right. It's, we'll get the next result. But I think it's key for them. They have to win this game, because I would not take Australia lightly, because that could be another trap game. Yeah. And they can't be looking ahead towards the Turkey game. They got to take care of business here and take care of, get a point against Australia. Really, I think the best case scenario for them is to get the 6 points. And right. So it starts tonight there at SoFi.
Yeah, back in episode 1, Aaron had asked the question about who we thought all of us, who we thought had more pressure on them. Was it whether it was El3 or it was the U.S. men's national team? And so, almost identical in terms of the perspective of all the pressure, just like Mexico, all the pressure's on the U.S., right? So, how do they embrace that, right? We're quick. We've talked about it. How, I don't call this generation yet until they prove it. I don't call them the golden generation. They're the prove it generation, right? They have to prove it, right? And here, that pressure, you got to step into that pressure, because pressure is a privilege when you get to have a World Cup on home soil, right? So don't shy away from it, right? Embrace it and run with it. And from the Paraguay perspective, it's like, on one hand, yes, they've gone into, whether it's the Maracana or where have you, in Argentina, going Chile, Peru, and they got to go through Colombia. They got to go through those places and qualify in CONMEBOL. So they've been in tough environments, right? Tough atmospheres, but nobody on this roster has any World Cup experience, right? So think about that versus a U.S. squad who their average age is 25 years old, and they got a ton of people with World Cup experience. So that could also play a factor as well in terms of neutralizing the experience level of in a World Cup with all the eyes of the world on you, right? So, all right, so we'll move on. We'll look to the next one. So, all right, so from our tactical breakdown perspective, right, one of the things we kind of really want to dive into before we get into not so much starting lineups, but more so the potential formations. But Brian, tell us a little bit from the perspective of what can we expect from the tactics versus Paraguay from the U.S. tonight.
Well, I think you can look at what happened against both Senegal and Germany and get a good idea of what we're going to look to do. The front three is going to press. The front three are going to, with Balogun up top, and then you're going to see guys like Dest and McKinney and Pulisic. The midfield's going to push. The midfield's is going to be athletic. It's going to be aggressive, winning the ball, getting the ball up the field. I think you're going to see the back line try to find the killer passes. We saw that with Alex Freeman a couple times against Senegal. I think you're going to see a very aggressive U.S. team early on. And going back to what Elias said, think about this, guys. He said we're expected to win this game. When have we been in a World Cup recently? I mean, we go back all the way to 1990. Going into the first game of the World Cup, I don't think there's been a first game of the World Cup that we expected to win. That anyone said, "Hey, we have to win." Yeah, we want to win this game, but the pressure. And I remember I listened to the show Monday show today. The pressure's on us. We have built up this World Cup. I think the pressure for us is different than what it is for Mexico. This is a pressure cooker for us because we have built this thing up. We have hyped this thing up so much. You have the cameras following the guys around. You have all the documentaries going around. You have all the hype on social media. You have everything going on. These guys aren't oblivious to it. They know that the pressure's on, and they have got to perform. I think we're going to come out aggressive early. That might hurt us. We might get caught on the counter really quick early on. But I think something that we'll see is I think we'll be a little bit more organized in the back. I think we're going to be a little bit more composed in the back with Chris Richards in the back three tonight. Everyone I've talked to expects him to start. So I think the back three will be a little bit more composed with that 3-5-2 that they're kind of running, whatever modified for 3-5-2, 5-3-2, whatever it is. But I think the back line will be more composed. The midfield will be aggressive. The front three will press. I think you're just going to see a very aggressive American team that's going to come out and try to prove that the hype is real.
Well said. So, Aaron, Elias, from your perspective, right? So we know the thought is, or what we've been told, short of kind of a last-minute Scooby-Doo surprise, right, is that their key most aggressive finisher in Julio Enciso is not expected to play. They're saying that maybe third match of group play, who suffered an injury in a send-off series match of their own. But Diego Almiron, I think he's the one that kind of leads a lot of this attack as they're attacking midfielder, right? What are your thoughts? What do you expect to see from Paraguay tonight?
I think too. You're talking about Miguel Almiron, they're the Atlanta United guy, right?
Correct.
Yeah, Miguel Almiron, he went to Newcastle and then now he's back with Atlanta United. He's one of their guys that loves to counterattack, and he's quick on the counterattack. I think without Julio tonight, I think you're going to see a very big time setup defensive minded game where they're just going to sit back, play that mid to low block, and then try to hit him on the counterattack and get going forward with some of the other guys. I think because of that defensive block that we're going to see tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if we roll out with two forwards tonight. I mean, I know that we haven't really prepped it at all. We haven't really run it, but why not go out there if they're going to sit deep, bring Pepe on with Balogun, and put them both up high. You probably sacrifice Tillman in the middle, but you still have Weston and Adams that can sit next to each other and keep us defended on the counterattack. I know Anthony Robinson's big role tonight is going to be, can he stay back more and help Tim Ream when he gets in those 1v1 situations, because that's the only concern for us is Tim Ream, how can he handle when he gets 1v1? So the amount of time that we can limit him from having to be in those situations, I think bodes well for us. And then on the other side, can we get Serginho Dest high? Can we get those attacking wingbacks to kind of deal with kind of the space and so not leave those options open either for Almiron to be able to get in behind and do what he does best and attack the end line and get the ball back across for whoever. It doesn't matter who's in there. He's going to provide that service. So Almiron's a good player. He's somebody who you got to watch out for sure.
Yeah. Elias?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. You have on there the Americans are the best when they attack directly. I just don't know that there's gonna be a whole lot of space for us to play direct today. They're gonna see probably a version of a 4-4-2 mid to low block, a 4-5-1 low block, a 5-4-1 low block. Some sort of low block, and it's gonna be really important that they are able to break that down without kind of exposing themselves in transition. So the midfield pairing that sits in front of that back three is going to be really, really important. What I don't want to see from them, though, is I kind of, I shared that screenshot with y'all where Mexico was building with 5 when South Africa was pressing with 2 or 3. So can you build without, sacrificing that rest defense? Can we get some rotations, especially with the wide players? Maybe Pulisic, he pulls wide. If he's starting in that number 10 role, I actually think that's pretty good for us because he's going to naturally, try to pull into those half spaces, maybe pull into those wide spaces where he's comfortable. How does that relationship with Anthony Robinson there on the left, how does that work? And then, capitalizing in the box. But they're going to have to do something I don't think that they really enjoy doing. I don't think that they enjoy playing against low blocks. This is not Spain where they're used to it. They're used to games being kind of open. And I think you kind of see that they struggle in these games. You think about the games that the big letdowns that we've had are against teams that sit and counter because I don't know that we have really kind of progress to that level of maybe these bigger countries, soccer-wise, where they're okay, being in the box for 60 minutes and knowing that, hey, I'm going to create 3 or 4 chances. I need to put away 2 or 3 because I'm probably going to give up 1 on the other end. Just kind of seeing, and that's a step for them that I want to see them take for them to actually get in the conversation. Can you win these games where, you're playing against a team that's going to defend for a long period of time? And can you be more, just smarter and deal with those moments and not necessarily force things? I think it's going to be frustrating for the first 15 to 20 minutes, especially if there's not an early goal. So how do they manage those different game states? That's kind of my preliminary thoughts on that.
Yeah. No, well said. And I think that's been the Achilles heel, right, of this U.S. men's national team, right, is how do we getting in between the lines on low blocks, right? And, it's funny you mentioned too the attacking directly. One of the things how I interpret that in terms of how when they're their best is on the front foot going forward and being comfortable with that and being patient with that. We talked about it I think it was episode 1, Aaron, right, where we talked about play with emotion but not play emotional.
Yep.
That includes frustration because if you haven't scored, if the goal hasn't come in the first 10, 20, 30 minutes, first half, 15 minutes into the second half, right? But you're right, Elias. I think that's part of the reason why I picked the final scoreline that I did for this match, for that for that very reason. But like I said, if the nerves get Paraguay somehow, and a mistake, a costly mistake, something like what we saw South Africa do yesterday versus Mexico, you never know. That changes everything immediately. So, all right, we'll move on. Next one. So some of our key matchups, we've already cited some of these in here. From the Christian Pulisic perspective, as well as Tyler Adams, we'll get into that in a minute. But from the Tim Ream perspective in the back, right? Aaron, tell us, so your thoughts, the team captain, what are we looking for there in terms of because we don't know exactly who they're going to put up there for forward to replace Enciso if Enciso doesn't play, but we still know that they're going to play very physical and they're going to try to isolate and pick on the old man, right, in Tim Ream. Thoughts?
For sure. I think that's the biggest concern that we have about our back line is just, can Tim Ream handle it with where he's at in his career and at his age? Now, don't get me wrong, man. He did very well at the last World Cup. He looked great, but I think you kind of nailed it right there with one of your points. Is the recovery speed is no longer what it once was, and I think you saw it. He knows it the way he plays. The first goal that Senegal scored against us, we lost the ball in the midfield. They turned and sprinted right at him. Now, his concern was, I can't get beat, so I'm just going to turn and sprint backwards. But then what he did is he allowed the guy to run 40, 50 yards to goal without any pressure on him, and he was able to pick out the pass to find Sane in there to score the goal. So I think our biggest concern tonight is, how is he going to handle it on the counterattack? Everything else is fine. If we have to sit in and defend, he's so great. Like it says there, positioning remains elite. He's so great at his positioning and knows where to be. It's just when you're asking him to react quickly and try to get behind the ball and be physical with somebody. Can he hang on to it? And I think that's where another key outcome to this match is going to be. Can we find people to put him in good positions to help him? Can Robinson get back and get behind the ball enough to help him so he's not left one-on-one having to defend? I feel a lot more confident with Chris Richards coming in, which we all believe he's going to start tonight. I don't think there's any reason to think he won't. But yeah, I mean, I think we can do some good things in this game if we know, hey, this is one of our weaknesses, and how can we not make it a weakness? And we don't make it a weakness by making sure that he has help, and we provide that kind of coverage for him.
Rafa, thoughts on Paraguay's counter attack? How low will they play? When will they pick their spots in terms of counterattacks? We know they have the capability, but also one of the unique things that I want to look at is not so much Tyler Adams, but in terms of how Pochettino comes out with McKennie, right? Does he flip-flop McKennie and Tillman, or the way he's been using McKennie as of late? I think you push Tillman up and keep McKennie a little bit more central with Adams for that relationship there. So I'm kind of curious to see whether it's McKennie or whether it's Tillman, that relationship with Adams there in the midfield to help neutralize that counterattack from Paraguay, because it will be there in moments, right? Despite the low block. What are your thoughts on that counterattack from Paraguay?
I think what they want to kind of accomplish is making sure kind of suck them in and cause little mismatches there and take advantage of space and sending the ball up quick. Like you mentioned, they're probably going to get, I'm guessing, maybe 5 shots on goal at the most from this game. I think that's because, like I said, Paraguay's not a high octane type of offense, so they're going to pick their spots, like I said. But if they can get 2-3 good opportunities, then they can cash in. That's what they're going to look at. So I think they're going to, like I said, try to pull the numbers out of the U.S., kind of sucker them a little bit. And when they do steal the ball, get it up fast, hit the spaces, and take advantage of that. I think also what they want to probably take advantage of is getting fouls on the attacking side of that. Like I said, free kicks is going to be a key for them. Set pieces around the 18, corner kicks. They do have some height with their forwards. You got some 6'1", 6'2" forwards that can hit the balls in and so forth. So that's what they're going pretty much what they're going to do. That's what they did throughout pretty much CONMEBOL, through the qualifications. That's how they get some good wins. They're going to absorb as much as they can, and maybe even also try to kind of maybe have the U.S. overextend a lot of energy too. Because like I said, the pressure's on them. Like I said, with the crowd and all that, kind of pushing them, trying to get the score early on, and if they can absorb, keep it close, with 0-0 real late, maybe that'll kind of open up the game a little bit more for them, and turn it up. And also, I think a key also, I think not mentioned, is the SoFi stadium is not very ideal for soccer. I've heard a lot of complaints about that stadium, and and that can come in the factor. I know the U.S. hasn't really played well there, and a few times they have, and I know, like I said, this is the key here. This, can the U.S. stay organized too? Stop those counterattacks, and I think Uruguay is going to really kind of key on that. It's finding space, get it up there, take every single match, because like I said, I just don't see them shots on goals more than 5 at the most. And like I said, but
yeah, it's not a very, very heavy attack-oriented squad to begin with. What they might look like without Enciso also kind of determines things. So how much we know they're going to park the bus, we know they're well organized, they'll well coached defensively, but how different do they have any teeth whatsoever going forward without Enciso? And then so I think this is where it's important on how Almiron is used, right? So, all right. So Brian, tell us the thoughts on Pulisic. How does he get goals, or how does he link up with Balogun to make some goals happen?
I mean, he's going to have to get himself in some good positions. I think in the Germany game, he did a really good job of coming back to the ball several times to get possession, and then try to work the ball up, trying to find himself there. And then there were a couple times where he was just able to get into the space in behind the German back four. But I think you go back to the game in November when we played Paraguay. 2 goals in the first 10 minutes, and then Paraguay dropped into their low block, and the U.S. really kept possession. I want to say the final stats, they held about 59% of the possession in that game. They were very organized. They were very patient. Yes, they did kind of get caught on the back four, or on the counter a couple times, but that was more of the fact that our back four was Tim Ream and Miles Robinson, not Chris Richards in that game. But we did a good job of probing the back four, or probing their low block, and finding our opportunities and getting the goal that we ended up getting to beat them. I think this game can be very similar to that. I think we may, I think we get caught on the counter, but hopefully we don't give up the goals. But we've got to be patient, and I think that's one of the reasons why we played Paraguay in November. Just a team that is going to present that low block. If we were playing another lower team in this tournament opening up, we know what they're going to do. We know South Africa sat in a low block. We know, other teams are going to do the same. We've got to play teams that play a low block, and we've got to be able to be patient with it. We've got to be able to make the runs in behind, make the runs into spaces. There needs to be some combination play. I think Pulisic and Balogun, they do a good job with that. And I think what it's going to be is finding Dest as the third man off the third man runs. Because Serginho Dest against Germany was all over the place. Literally running all over the field. So if you can find him on a third man combination run, you can get him in behind, and then you can unbalance that low block and find the gaps to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the major X factor in this one, Dest. I love seeing him go forward. He's just got to remember to get back, because you never know when. If Paraguay senses that he's not tracking back as much as he should on the way back, that's where they'll pick their moments as well, right? Opposite of Tim Ream.
But Hector, but going back to that, I think what the U.S. did is a good job against Germany is that back three shifted into that back four. Freeman shifted out wide.
Correct.
Ream and Miles Robinson were able to come across, and Anthony Robinson got pulled back in there a little bit. If you watch the first half, Anthony Robinson's not up the field very much. He was really kind of pulled back quite a bit, and that's partly the Germans were attacking, but also they kind of said, okay, we're going to let Serginho Dest go up the field, and we'll have his cover with Alex Freeman playing out wide for him. And you saw Freeman get pulled all over the place, from the middle of the park all the way to the touchline. And he did a really good job there. So I think they're going to be okay with letting Serginho stay high, as long as they're able to shift that back line and pull Anthony Robinson in.
Yeah. So, yeah, great point. Love that. And Brian, you'll love this. Here's a Jesse Marsh quote from our friends at Troll Football, right? He said we couldn't win tonight because we were playing against two countries, both Bosnia and Herzegovina. So
It's just
tongue in
something.
cheek, obviously. So, all right. So, all right. So our projected formations, right? Not so much the starting lineups because none of us really know. There'll be probably one surprise in here somewhere, at least for Paraguay. But does it look? Here's what they've both squads have been most recently playing on a consistent basis is a 5-3-2 that kind of really flexes into a 3-5-2 in the attack, and for Paraguay a 4-2-3-1 that flexes into a 4-4-2. And we've already hit on a lot of this in these pieces, but you know, some of these things that also matter, right, in terms of just the moments in transition. Can we capitalize on that when we catch them? So maybe Paraguay doesn't have a chance to set up that low block, right? Well, we have the speed, we have the depth. And yes, Paraguay is going to look to slow it down. They're going to look to make it physical and make it ugly. That's what so again, discipline will be crucial in this one, right? So we'll have to watch, Aaron, we'll have to watch your boy Tim Weah if and when he gets in, right? So,
That's true.
but, and then we highlighted it briefly, right? But back in November of last year, these two teams went at it. So very much so, I think there's two spirited teams, and if you know South America teams, they come to play, right? They play very physical. So and on home soil, the U.S. men's national team is not going to back down. So got to keep all of that in mind as well. So Elias, your thoughts here from either perspective, the U.S. or Paraguay, in terms of the matchups over the formations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the U.S. is going to try to get into some sort of 3-2-5 attacking shape. I think that on the left, their main creative outlet is going to be Pulisic, and on the right, it's going to be Serginho Dest. And it's going to be really important that they are able to create some sort of rotations to where they can't. What I'm worried about is it just becoming a static 3-2-5, where the wingbacks get up. The two number 10s are in the pockets, and then you have kind of that base, and you're just going to end up where you're just circulating the ball. So, we talked about how Dest kind of pops up in a lot of different places. So those, that may create some problems for Paraguay where, does that outside back track him all the way in? If he does, do we have somebody that pulls out wide? How do the back three support those wide players in possession? How do and then I could see where, Paraguay drops into almost like a back five at times. I could see one of those holding midfielders drop in. So then how do you solve that problem? Do you push one of your holding midfielders up a little bit higher, and now you're kind of attacking with 6 on their back 5? And so it's just going to be a lot of risk reward. Where they're going to have to pick their moments where they really, commit those numbers, where they get numbers in the box, because they know when they do that it's going to have to be a clear-cut chance, or it's probably going to be a chance going the other way, because, the South American teams, they're okay with it being ugly. I think that, they're going to get to it, and they're going to be fine with, the U.S. having the ball in front of them. And they're going to say, okay, keep moving it. We'll defend our box, and then when we get it from you, we're going to go hit you on the counter. So it's just going to be a really, really big test and resolve from the U.S. and seeing, what kind of rotations they can come up with, because it's going to be a unique test. And I think Paraguay they're going to be up for it. It's funny, they both have Argentinian coaches. So it's going to be a combative game, I think.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Not afraid to make it ugly. Very comfortable with ugly. That's kind of why we referenced the CONMEBOL qualification process earlier. So they'll be right at home from that perspective. I think it's just more of can the nerves grab them as well, being in their first World Cup in 16 years? Not a single player on this squad having any World Cup experience, right? So we'll see. Aaron, anything else to add to Elias's analysis there?
Yeah, I think too, a lot of people don't know or don't really remember, but Alderete, number 4 right there, the center back for Paraguay, was the one who got sent off in that skirmish at the end of the game. He's the one he didn't get to play in that game because he was injured, and he came off the bench and kind of knocked Freeman off to the side. and I supposedly threw a punch. I keep hearing that punches were thrown in that, and every time I watch it, I try to find one. Can't really find one, but it was pretty heated, and right there at the end of the game, in between both benches. So it'll be interesting that he's going to be on the field tonight. You've got Freeman on the field. That was who kind of started it. And you're right. If Tim Way is on the field, we all know that something could go down at any minute. He's just got to stay under control and not get caught, not be the second man like he did against it was Panama when he got caught with that red card. So no, it's gonna be who can keep their cool, who can manage their emotions tonight. I mean, I'm so excited for this game. We could talk about it all day long, but we just want to get to it already, right? Let's see the lineups. Let's get out, and we scored early against them last time. I think it was the 4th minute that Reyna got the header. It will definitely be harder than it was last time we played them to get that early goal. But man, what an early goal would do for all of us and our emotions, and even the emotions of all the players.
Yeah. Set pieces matter, right? Set pieces. I think we're in store here for potentially them playing a key role, if not a goal, maybe, I don't know, maybe you get more than one goal from that perspective, right? So, and Paraguay is, maybe low block. They don't score a lot, but they're pretty solid on set pieces, on attacking set pieces as well. So something to watch. All right. So we move on. All right. So keys to victory here. So U.S. perspective, Brian, take us through a couple of these. What are your thoughts on this, and what can you add?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think the biggest key for both teams is to score first, and I think if the U.S.
very, very great analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you score more goals than your opponents, you don't lose the game. I've learned that as well.
That's what they tell me. I'm
I read that in a book. I read that in a book, and I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express in Chicago. So I've got all this soccer.
You read. I already don't believe, but yes, continue, please.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I think for the U.S. they need to score early. And I think that will settle them down. I know. I just based on what I saw in Chicago and in Charlotte, they're going to come play aggressive. So can they get that? Can they get that early goal to kind of just settle the nerves and let them get into it? And getting an early goal, can they start pulling Paraguay out of the low block? Because if you get a goal early on them and you put them under pressure, Paraguay is going to realize they're going to have to come out of that low block to avoid getting. To avoid getting shellacked. If the U.S. can get through that low block several times early on, Paraguay is going to have to come up with Plan B, because they're not going to just sit back and just let the U.S. pepper them. The U.S. has got to avoid to get caught in transition. I think they've got to make sure they've got support for Tim Ream in those areas there. I think Chris Richards is the answer to that. I think there still needs to be some composure for some of these young players. Yes, we talk about the experience factor, but we still talk about there's a lot of young kids on this team. Alex Freeman's a young kid. I really think we're going to see Sebastian Berhalter start tonight. And the reason I think that is that he delivers one of the best set pieces that I've seen in a long time. And like we said, set pieces matter, and he does a heck of a job getting them in the right places there. But I think. The young kids are going to settle down. Our goalkeeping situation. If Matt Freese is starting, he's his first ever start in a World Cup. So, can we get them to be composed and get them into the flow of the game? Can we get some confidence early, get an early goal, and let them relax a little bit on the field, in the sense that they can play the game the way they know how to play. I also think the biggest key to the game is going to be what is on Pochettino's laptop during the timeout, during the quarter breaks. Like, is he going to have motivational videos? Is he going to have like puppies fighting or something? I mean, what is he going to show the players during the commercial breaks to keep them fired up? I'm just curious.
I'm being told it'll be an order from DoorDash. Is what I'm being told by Fabrizio Romano. So. Great point, though. Great point. Rafa, from the perspective, the antagonist perspective, right? Paraguay, of these four, right, along with anything you have to add, but of these four, which one do you think is the most important first half, and then maybe second half, from the Paraguay perspective? If you're their manager, what are you telling them?
I think just staying compact, keeping your shape. I think that's the most important thing, and then. I think number 4 is probably be the second thing for them is make it physical. Get under their skin. cards. We saw yesterday. Cards do play a factor. I mean, it played a factor in yesterday's first game. So, we'll see how we don't know who the referee is this going to be. Is he one that pulls out cards pretty quick, and so forth. So getting under the skin, being physical, it's another thing. Frustrating them, and then like I said, slowing the tempo. That's I think that's what Paraguay does best. And then just picking your spots. But number one for them is just keeping their shape, staying compact, coming for frustrating them, and then just pick and choose your attacks and so forth. So that's like I said, they're really good at doing that, and we'll see what they can, like I said, muster up as far as those opportunities given, and then set pieces will be the key, especially if it does get physical. They're able to get attacks, get fouled on the attacking side, and see with the what's set up for for those opportunities for them. So it's gonna say I think keeping a level head is a big thing for them. So just like I said, but my game plan would be just first trying to get them frustrated, get in their head.
I agree.
And I think that'll help them out. In the end. Maybe get a result and get a point out too.
This is a Paraguay squad that just gives up very, very few goals, and they're battle tested in CONMEBOL, as we've all talked about. And I think, what was it, 8 goals in qualifying? 8 or 10 goals in 18 qualifying matches, I think is what it was.
But Hector, I want 2 more things. One, the referee tonight. He's a Dutch referee.
He's a what? He's a what?
He's a Dutch referee.
Oh, Dutch. Okay.
From Holland. From what I've read, he allows physical play, doesn't like to pull the cards early, so that might change the game a little bit. But I think this might be the other key that we need to make sure we got to get the crowd involved early, and we can't if we don't score early, you can't let this crowd die. I think it's I think getting some success early on keeps the crowd into this game. The game in Chicago, the crowd was buzzing a lot until probably about the last 30 minutes, and then it just kind of died out. But early on, the U.S. was in that game. They got the crowd going in too. These guys, I think the crowd will be a big help for them. If we can keep the crowd into it. Just like the Canadian crowd was today, the Mexican crowd yesterday. You've got to have that 12th man. At this home World Cup.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is the supporters, the crowd, making their presence known beyond the first, let's say 15, 20 minutes in, there's still no score, right? And I think that tends to be the big knock, right, on Americans, right? It's like, oh, we want to see score, and entertain me now, entertain me fast, entertain me often. And if I don't see anything that doesn't look like a goal after a few minutes or a score, all of a sudden I'm bored, right? They got to be consistent with that as well. So we'll see. And we talked about it in episode 1, right? And Serginho Dest was talking about it in the Chicago match, right? In the send-off series versus Germany, is our boys for the U.S. men's national team, they're legitimately not used to playing at home with overwhelming numbers that support them, right? So that's an adjustment for them too, right? So it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have, but it's still an adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard being a fan at those games because you're like, wait a second, this is the pro-American crowd. You don't go to a whole lot of those.
Yeah. So
no, that's what we saw on the documentary we've been watching.
Right.
It's the world. I mean, Pochettino in the very last episode, it opened with him in tears, crying, and I was like, "Is this man really crying about the fact they look? I was pissed that they lost to Mexico, but I don't know if I'm sitting crying about it." And then I realized, no, he was talking about he was so upset for his players to have to play on home soil and it not be a pro-U.S. crowd. And he's like, you guys don't deserve that. And absolutely. I think watching that, I think that's a huge challenge to everyone out here in America that bought tickets to go watch the U.S. play. This is on you guys to make them feel your presence in the stadium. That could change the game. It could change the game big time for us and make it to where we have finally home field advantage.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree. All right, so that does our wrap up on our analysis, but it is put up or shut up time. So we'll go through official predictions. Wes, we'll start with you. Scoreline, final score.
I think scoreline tonight is 3-1 USA. I'd love to say that we get the clean sheet, but we haven't shown that we can do that. I think we're going to get out and we're going to score, though, tonight.
3-1 USA. All right. So, Elias, what you got?
I think I'll put 2-1 maybe. I think that I don't remember exactly what I put. I think we score more than one. I do think we give one up. I'm interested to see where the goals come, because I think that game states, especially in the World Cup, are really, really important. And, going
Yeah,
down early
yeah.
versus,
You had 2-1 USA. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm hoping that we get an early goal. If they score first, it's going to be a long night. And I don't think that going down 1-0 is necessarily a death blow, but it does make the game more complicated, and it is going to require even more patience. But I think 2-1. I think a gritty performance. I think that sometimes, just like people overlook the U.S., I think some people are maybe going to overlook Paraguay. I mean, Colombo it's life or death there to in these games, and
Yeah.
so this is gonna be a true test, and I think that's what makes it fun. Is that if we knew how it was gonna end, then I
Right.
mean, why would we do this, right? So
Correct.
but it's gonna be a fun game. But I have the U.S. coming out 2-1.
Yeah. Rafa, I know you had it. I think 6-0 Paraguay over the U.S. Right? I think that was your score line. No, I think you had 1-1, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Feeling anything different? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I could see a 1-1 game. If it goes a little deeper, maybe even I think maybe even the 0-0 game. I know U.S. has had some issues, with some of these South American teams, and can they make those right adjustments at the half? That's the key. If they're at 0-0 at the half, can Pochettino make those right adjustments to kind of open up space and get a goal? Scoring early is probably the key for them, and I think if they get a goal early, and I think they can win. But if it stays long, they prolong it, it just falls into what Paraguay's game plan. And one little, like I said, sometimes I had that one little mistake in the back, and if you saw some of the games in the last few weeks, that can kind of bite them in the butt and all that. So I could see a 1-1 game, but but like I said, I think U.S. could pull out a 2-1, but I would not be surprised if it's tied 1-1.
Good deal. And then Mr. Heyman, with your pecs and your 6-pack abs, tell us flex. You can flex on us. What's your official score line? What are you going with?
Well, my first thought was that USA 4-1, but I've kind of gotten that
4-1.
tism.
Wow.
I've got that tism and my patriotism going. So I'm now thinking maybe like
Well, that is what you picked, isn't it? It is.
like
It
a
was
7-1, 8-1 game. I think we're gonna hit them with a little bit of truth, hit them with a little bit of justice. We're gonna come right through. We're gonna flex all over them. You're gonna see an American team come out fired up, baby, and we're gonna come running all over these guys. And we're gonna be having red, white, and blue parties all over the U.S. tonight when we go rolling through this thing on our way to the World Cup final, brother.
All right. Only thing you left out was the vitamins and the prayers, right? I think you had everything else in there. So.
Well,
I want to see the bald eagle in a U.S. jersey, like Mexico had the duck this morning.
Oh yeah, man, the duck. Props to those Mexico El Tri fans with the duck. That was pretty awesome. Only thing they needed
the
was
duck was later cooked for dinner.
probably,
Yeah.
probably. But so yeah, my official score line, what I went with, what I originally picked in my predictions was 1-0 US, because it's gonna be tough to score on this team. But I'm also kind of, I don't know, I don't want us to come to the just the excitement of the moment, but I am feeling multiple goals here. Dare I say that, against Paraguay, getting them on home soil here? But we'll see. I think it's going to come down to the mistakes. Who makes mistakes where on the field? But I think also how much teeth does the attack of Paraguay have if there is no Enciso, right? And if they do have Enciso, what is he even at? Is he, what is he, 75%, 80%, or maybe he comes on late as a sub if he is available, right? So all of these factors, I think that's what I'm kind of going to be looking at as well. But yeah, that is going to do it for episode 3. Our U.S. men's national team preview versus Paraguay should be a fun one, coming your way at 8 o'clock Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time. What is that, 6 p.m. Pacific, I think, from SoFi or Los Angeles Stadium, as Gianni wants us to call it. Yeah, it's going to be a great one, I think, in store. I think savor the moment after 32 years on another World Cup on home soil. This will be big, man. This will be very, very big. So one of those I remember exactly where I was watching it kind of thing. So excited for it. Before we go, as we start to wrap up here, one thing we did want to mention, I don't think it's today, but either way, maybe tomorrow, I don't, sometime this weekend, but want to put him on blast and give him a big shout out and happy birthday to our crew member in Elias Ramos. So got to give the speech, man. Birthday speech. Anything plans for tonight, the U.S. celebration?
Yeah, we're gonna kick it off with a big old glass of freedom and patriotism. So,
Talking about brother.
let's it's gonna be a party, and
Yeah.
so
Be the tall
the
boy,
whole country's gonna be celebrating with us. So
Oh, the taller boy, right?
the taller boy from
the taller boy,
3 beers in 1.
When did
Bush
that
Light.
launch? When did that launch? Was that today, or when did that come out? Or, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I guess
I
it
haven't
was
seen it yet either. I don't know.
supposed to be sometime this week. So the taller boy. In case you don't know what we're looking at, talking about, look it up. Coors Light. Some came out with something. So, not that we're sponsored by Coors Light. So Coors Light. So if you want to sponsor us, by
We're
all means.
open to it. Yeah, we're open for sure.
Absolutely.
I'll take down all 3 beers.
Absolutely. Again, a reminder. So you are listening to the Red, White, and Crew podcast, featuring or covering, I should say, chronicling the U.S. Men's National Team World Cup, as well as covering all things for the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup as well. Again, go on there, like, rate, subscribe. You're listening to this on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, because that keeps us going in the algorithm. Special thanks to all our supporters yesterday from South Africa that were listening, kind of followed up, gave us a big shout out behind the scenes. Appreciate them. But also, you can find us, as of now, we will have a YouTube channel specific to this podcast up and running soon. But again, for now, you can find us on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Since the Red, White, and Crew podcast is part of the 50/50 podcast network, you can also find us, the Red, White, and Crew. You can find them at Red, White Crew Pod on both Instagram as well as on X, Twitter X, Twix as we call it. And then you can also find us on the 50/50 podcast at 50/50 pod as on X, as well as at 50_50 podcast on Instagram. So go on there, like, rate, subscribe, give us a follow, give us a shout out, and then anywhere you listen to your audio podcast or whatever your preferred podcast platform is, you can listen to the audio version of this as well. So again, that's going to do it for our preview show. We'll be coming back to you. We'll announce a later time. Probably we're thinking noon tomorrow for our recap show of tonight's match between U.S. and Paraguay. Gentlemen, as we get out of here, final thoughts, anything, reattacks, stoppage time, anything you want to share?
Alexi Lawless, you're my hero. Love it. If you have not seen it, go find it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Maybe don't
Second
Google
greatest
that one.
American who ever lived.
Might not want to. But can we get it straight? He said full kit, by the
Yes,
way.
full
It
kit,
wasn't
Wayne.
everything. It was
Yeah.
full kit, but you're
Yep.
not allowed to say the W word on BBC. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But that is going to do it. So for Brian Heyman, Elias Ramos, Rafa Casolena, and don't call him Aaron Westner, Coach Wes, that is going to do it. Come join us, watch the game tonight, have fun, cheer, be loud, active on social media. We'll be active on social media as well, but also come back, join us tomorrow at noon Central Time for our recap show. But until the next time, you know what to do. Keep